Story 1. I thought the sound was coming from my TV until I paused the movie and it kept coming from inside my house. A few years ago, I was in my early 30s, living in a peaceful suburban neighborhood just outside Portland, Oregon. My 5-year relationship had ended badly, and the woman I thought I would marry was suddenly gone. The breakup hit me harder than I expected. I felt lost, empty, and deeply depressed. For weeks, I barely functioned. I would go to work, come home, and isolate myself in my upstairs bedroom, watching whatever was on just to distract my mind. One Saturday night in early spring, the weather had finally warmed up. I had a couple of windows cracked open to let in the fresh air. I was lying on the couch watching a low-budget horror movie with terrible audio. Dialogue too quiet, sound effects too loud. That's when I started noticing a strange metallic clang. It sounded like a heavy pipe hitting something solid. It happened every minute or so, always the same sound, but it didn't match anything happening in the movie. At some point, I got up to use the bathroom and paused the film. When I came back and sat down, the clang happened again. The TV was silent. My body went rigid. I sat there listening. About 40 seconds later, it happened again. This time there was no doubt. The sound was coming from somewhere inside my house. Heart pounding, I grabbed the first thing I could use as a weapon, a sturdy letter opener, and searched every room. Closets, under beds, behind doors. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. As I walked back upstairs, the sound came again, softer this time, seeming to come from the direction of my bedroom. That's when I realized the windows were open. I moved slowly to the window overlooking the backyard and carefully pulled the curtain aside. About 25 feet away, one of my heavy wooden patio chairs had been dragged into the middle of the lawn. Next to it stood a small figure, a child, too small to be an adult. In the darkness, I couldn't see the face clearly, but the silhouette was unmistakable. The kid was holding a long white PVC pipe. As I watched, he swung it hard against the chair. The exact same metallic clang echoed through the yard. Fear hit me instantly. What was a child doing in my backyard in the middle of the night, making noise for so long? I tried to convince myself he might need help. I went downstairs and turned on the porch light. As I reached for the back door handle, something in my gut told me to stop. If he needed help, why not knock? Why stand there using a pipe? It felt wrong, like bait. I stepped back and moved to a small side window near the door. Keeping the lights off behind me, I carefully tilted the blinds and looked outside. 2 men dressed in black were crouched right below the steps, waiting. One of them suddenly turned his head and looked directly at me through the glass. I dropped the blinds, grabbed my phone, and ran upstairs while dialing 911. Seconds later, loud banging hit the back door. They were trying to break in. I locked myself in the bathroom. Glass shattered downstairs. Heavy footsteps. Multiple people inside the house. One set of footsteps started coming up the stairs. The bathroom door handle slowly turned. Then a hard kick shook the frame. In panic, I screamed that the police were on the way. Everything stopped. Footsteps rushed back downstairs. A door slammed. Silence. The police arrived quickly, but whoever they were had already disappeared. The officers said using a child like that suggested something organized, not random. I never found out who they were, but sometimes late at night, I still think I hear that metallic clang. Story 2. At 3 a.m., an ice cream truck stopped outside my window, but when I looked outside, the driver was already standing in my yard, holding hands with 2 children. It was spring of 2024, and I was a senior in college, just weeks away from graduation in a quiet town outside Seattle, Washington. I went back to my parents' house for a week to rest and get away from everything. One morning around 6 a.m., I left for the gym. As I drove through a quiet neighborhood, something caught my eye. An ice cream truck parked along the curb, engine off, No music, no lights. It made no sense. It was still cold, kids were in school, and the street was empty. As I passed, I glanced inside. No one was there. I tried to ignore it, but when I drove back later that morning, the truck was still in the exact same spot. Later that afternoon, I went outside to get the mail. That's when I saw it again. The same ice cream truck, now parked just a few houses down from mine. Something felt wrong. Deep in my gut, I knew this wasn't random. I went back inside and went upstairs to a window with a clear view of the street. The truck stayed there. Over the next few hours, it kept moving to different spots on the same block, like it was circling, watching. My hands started shaking. I grabbed a pair of binoculars and looked toward the truck. The moment I focused on the driver's side, my stomach dropped. The man inside was staring directly back at me through his own binoculars. We locked eyes. He immediately lowered them, started the engine, and drove away. That was when I called the police. They took a report, but there wasn't much they could do. That night I went to bed early. Sometime after 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly. My heart was already racing. Then I heard it, a faint, cheerful ice cream jingle. Too quiet, too close, like it was right outside my window. Then something lightly tapped the glass, a small rock, then another. I forced myself to move and slowly pulled the curtain aside. He was standing in the yard, right below my window. On either side of him were two small figures, children, each holding one of his hands. They stood completely still. I backed away, grabbed my phone, and called 911 while waking my dad. By the time we got outside, the yard was empty. A few weeks later, my mom called me. There had been a missing persons case nearby. Twin 6-year-old children who had disappeared. I still don't know if those were the same kids, but I can't stop thinking about it. Sometimes I wonder if they were already with him that morning, or if I saw them before they disappeared. Story 3. I answered a late-night call and heard a recording of my own voice from earlier that day. It happened last spring, about 9 months ago. I was working as a sales consultant at a BMW dealership in the suburbs of Austin, Texas. My job depended heavily on phone calls, so I had a strict rule. I answered every single call, even unknown numbers. You never knew when a serious buyer might be on the other end. One night around 10:30 p.m., I was already in bed, exhausted after a long day. My phone lit up on the nightstand. Unknown number. Normally, I would answer immediately, but for some reason, I let it ring out. No voicemail. A few minutes later, the same number called again. This time I picked up. At first, there was nothing but heavy static, the kind that makes you pull the phone slightly away from your ear. I was about to hang up when I heard something underneath it. A voice. My voice. It was a recording of a conversation I had earlier that afternoon with a client, talking about pricing, availability, and scheduling a test drive. It was clear, too clear, and it was only me speaking. The other person wasn't there at all. I froze, listening for a few seconds, then hung up. At first, I tried to explain it away. Maybe the client recorded the call and accidentally dialed me back somehow. It didn't really make sense, but it was the only explanation that didn't feel insane. The next morning, I called the client. He had no idea what I was talking about. He sounded genuinely confused. I tried to move on. But the next night, almost at the same time, my phone rang again. Different number. I answered. Static. And then another recording. A completely different conversation from that same day. Again, only my voice. That's when it stopped feeling like a coincidence. The calls kept coming every night for about a week, always between 10 and 11 p.m. Always from a different number, always the same pattern. Static. Then a recording of something I had said earlier that day. I started recording the calls myself on my laptop, saving everything. Dates, times, content. I don't even know why. It just felt like I needed proof. By the fourth night, I couldn't relax anymore. I kept checking the windows, looking outside into the dark, convinced someone was out there watching me. I started leaving lights on in every room. I even dragged a chair in front of my bedroom door at night. During the day, it got just as bad. If my phone rang, I would step outside, scan the area, then answer. I felt like I was being monitored constantly. I finally went to the police. I felt stupid explaining it, but I had to try. The officer took notes, but without threats or anything directly illegal, there wasn't much they could do. A few days later, the calls suddenly stopped. No warning, no explanation. At first, I felt relief, but then something worse set in. Silence. My mind started racing. I began questioning everything. My mother has struggled with schizophrenia for years, and the thought that maybe this was all in my head started creeping in. It scared me more than the calls themselves. I decided to change my phone number completely. It was a huge hassle, but I couldn't keep living like that. For a few days, everything was quiet. Then one evening, my phone rang again. Unknown number, same static, same pattern. This time, I didn't hang up. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to speak. "I don't know who you are," I said, "but if you want money, I'll pay. Just tell me what you want." There was a long pause. Then for the first time, a voice answered, distorted, mechanical. 11. The line went dead. I realized almost immediately that I had made a mistake. I had given them my address. For the next 4 nights, I didn't sleep. I sat in my house waiting. Every sound made my heart race. Every passing car felt like it was stopping outside. I kept imagining what would happen if someone actually showed up at my door. But no one ever did. The 4th night passed. Nothing happened. After that, the calls stopped completely. They never came back. I eventually moved out of that house. It took months before I started feeling even slightly normal again. But I still don't understand how someone recorded those conversations so clearly, or why they chose me. And sometimes, late at night, when my phone lights up from an unknown number, I hesitate before answering, because part of me is still afraid that I'll hear my own voice again.